Hello everyone, this is Shannon for Hero Arts. In this video we are going to create this colorful card featuring the Sweethearts Peekaboo Cling stamp, but we're going to give this card a little bit of a twist and we're going to use the stamp set for inside the doors instead of outside the doors. We're going to start today's card by creating our background for the front panel. I have an A2 panel here of Dove white cardstock, so it is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm going to ink blend a rainbow over this panel. I'm using Reactive inks and I'm starting with Taffy here, and I'm just going to ink blend at the very top. This goes really quickly and these inks blend really beautifully. I'm now going to move on to my next color. This is Creamsicle. I have 6 colors picked out to create my rainbow, which is how I'm kind of gauging how much space to provide for each one. This next color is Lemon Drop. Since I have 6, I need to have 3 colors on the top half and 3 colors on the bottom half, and right now I'm just touching up those first 3 colors, making the transition a little bit smoother. And now moving on to my bottom half, I'm starting with Key Lime Fizz here. This is a really nice kind of lime green. Then I'll move on to my blue. This is Splash. Gonna turn my paper around here. I just find it easier for me to come in from the right, so I'm just rotating my paper around. And then I'll finish up with my very last color, which is Thistle. I decided to do a rainbow because conversation hearts are kind of have a rainbow palette, so I'm just kind of mimicking that because we're going to have those conversation hearts behind those doors as for a little fun surprise. So now that I finished with the purple, I'm just going to go back through that bottom half of colors, just kind of again fine tune that blend so it's a little bit smoother, kind of make this yellow a little bit brighter. Thought I was losing it a little bit there to the green. And now I'm all done with my ink blending. I'm now going to add some water spots. So I just grabbed a piece of acetate. I'm just going to spray out some water onto the acetate, grab a brush, and then load it up with some water, and then I'll just tap the brush with my finger and that will release some water droplets onto the panel. I like to add water this way just because I feel like I get a finer mist. This is going to break up that background a little bit, add a little bit more interest, and also kind of brings in that pastel-y color, which will kind of reference those conversation hearts a little bit more. So I just used a towel to kind of pick up some of that water, and now I'm going to set this panel aside to dry. So now we're done with our background, we're going to stamp the Sweethearts Cling stamp onto an A2 top folding card base made out of Dove white cardstock. I'm going to remove my mouse pad so I can stamp this rubber cling stamp with my MISTI. I am positioned my card base into my MISTI, and I'm just going to now line up best I can, eyeball it here, center that cling stamp right in the front of that card. Once I get it lined up, I'll fold my MISTI over and pick up the stamp. I'm now going to ink up the stamp with a Copic-friendly ink. This is Hero Arts Intens-ified ink. It's just a nice, really wonderful black ink. I'm just going to ink up the whole entire cling stamp with that, and then I will stamp the front of the card. And I'll just make sure that I apply some pressure all over just so I get a perfect impression from that stamp. And it's stamped beautifully. So now I'm going to quickly stamp a sentiment. This is the Loving Messages stamp set. This also came out in the January My Monthly Hero release. Both the Sweethearts Cling and this Loving Messages stamp set are add-ons from that release. I just inked it up in, again, some intensified black ink and stamped it on a scrap of white cardstock. Now that I'm finished stamping, I'm ready to Copic color. The colors that I'm using are on screen so you can follow along. This is really simple Copic coloring. In fact, I'm not even doing any shading. I have a light pink and a dark pink picked out. I basically have a light and dark picked out of all the colors of the rainbow, an orange, a yellow, a green, a blue, and a purple, just like the ink colors that I use to ink blend the front panel. And what I do is I just color the tops of the conversation hearts with my light, and then kind of the side where it's a little bit kind of just at an angle, I'll color that with the darker Copic. I love this Sweethearts Peekaboo Cling stamp. It's just so cute and very versatile. The whole Peekaboo series is really awesome, but this stamp set in particular, you can use it how we're using it today, a little untraditional, using it behind the doors, but you can also use it on top of the doors that the Peekaboo fancy dies create, or you can use it just as a background stamp by itself. So lots of versatility there. So I am almost done here, just adding my darker purple to the edges here of these conversation hearts. And I have one more heart that I just decided to color pink, and that will finish it up. I'll do a little cleanup with a colorless blender, and now I've finished my Copic coloring on this panel. And you may notice I didn't color any of the little hearts in between. That's because most of those will be covered by the Fancy Doors panel that we die cut when we are done. So now I'm going to quickly color the hearts here on this sentiment that I stamped earlier. Again, I'm using the same combo of Copics that I used just before on those conversation hearts. So wherever I'm doing a pink, I'm doing the light pink first and then a dark pink, just adding a little shadow. So really quickly, easy Copic coloring just to let a little bit more of the colors that I'm using in the conversation hearts on the front of the card. So I went ahead and trimmed a part of the sentiment out. Any place that was kind of straight, I used my paper trimmer and kind of trimmed it out. So I did it at the bottom of the Be Mine, and there's these two openings at the top of it between the hearts that I cut with my paper trimmer as well. I have one of those precision paper trimmers, which makes this really easy, but if you don't have one of those, you could definitely use an X-Acto knife or even kind of eyeball it with with scissors. I think is fine. So after I've trimmed that down, I'm going to just fussy cut like you see me here around the hearts, leaving a little white border, and that will complete my sentiment. I'm now going to move on to my ink blended panel here. It is all dry and ready for me to die cut with the circular Peekaboo Doors fancy die. First I've got to get my alignment right, or at least I got to figure out which is the top. Right now I'm lining it up using the Sweethearts panel, and the first way I had it was not the correct way. Now I've got it lined up correctly so the openings of the door line up with the Sweetheart panel, and now I'll just take my Peekaboo Door die, line it up with my ink blended panel, making sure that the top is at the pink side. That's the side I want my pink to be the top of the top panel, or the top of my panel. And then I used a couple pieces of tape to hold it down, ran it through my die cutting machine. Now remove it, and I've got all my little doors die cut, and now it's ready to kind of put this card together. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some glue to the back side of this ink blended panel. This part you want to be a little bit careful. You want to avoid getting any of this glue on the doors themselves, because that will obviously prevent them from opening, but you also want to make sure that you do place glue around the doors. You want to get on the side where kind of like the hinges or the fold is, just so it can, fully support the panel. The panel's fully glued down to the Sweethearts panel, so it just has really good hold. Now that I've got my panel all glued down, I'm ready to move on to finishing this card up with my sentiment. I've already added some foam tape to the back side of the sentiment. I'm just going to remove the backing real quick, and once I've got that all removed, I'll just stick this down, and that will finish my card. And I'll hold the card up to the camera so you can get a good look at this fun card. What I really like about it is it's a big surprise. You have kind of a very simple card front, but then once you start opening these flaps, you have such a fun little surprise behind each one. It's just really such a great, I just love this Peekaboo Doors concept. It's just really brilliant. Such an easy way to make an interactive card, and it has tons of surprises. There's so many doors on these that the die cut, so it's just a really, really cool design. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you want any more information on the products I used, please check out the links below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.